Hello there. Today I wanted to give a more advanced guide or comprehension of the blood decay, which is my favorite class, tanking class, and I wanted to share some thoughts with you guys. So, onto the first thing I want to mention is well, I do a lot of Mythic Plus, which is my favorite thing, and I really like to main the DK. But I've seen there's a lot of guides on the internet that are a little bit lacking in advanced findings. So today I'm gonna go through some of them. Well, firstly, um, on the talents, like most people say, these are like fixed talents. These first four are fixed talents. That's pretty much you're always gonna take it, and the other ones have some niche applications. Um, well, first of all, if you're serious about your DK, you're probably always going to stick with Tightening Grasp. And why that is so powerful is because the best defense, well, at least in 5 mans, is actually kiting enemies. And a lot of people will show that in high keys as well. And I also apply it sometimes. That if a pack is too dangerous, then don't tank it, just kite it, right? And this talent allows you to kite very well because if you put your death decay between you and the enemies, you can just run away and it will take them a long time to get to you. And the other one that people take a lot is the March of the Damned, which is for mobility, but if you're a serious DK, you're probably gonna want a speed set. And as you can see, uh, you can make your sets here and then drag them to your action bars. And then you can just click on the set and then you will change all your gear set. So I have right here a movement speed set with almost 60% increased movement speed. And when you have this, you can just quickly switch between sets while you're running from trash back to trash. Or like you have an inactive moment, then you can just use the set instead of having the talent, which that is why normally you always stick with Tightening Grasp. Unless like you're raiding, maybe you can use this March of the Damned, but you you don't need it. If you have the appropriate gear, you don't need it. And this is why I want to talk about as well is that it's nice to have a set for speed, a set for single target, and a set for AoE. And the main two legendaries for speed are Zephyrus and Agromarks. And if you combine those two, you get the most speed out of it. And then you just stack a ton of haste gear everywhere else. And any pieces that you get speed on is also useful. But well, yeah, that's the basic of the speed set, right? And then talking about these other talents, Tremble Before Me is nice defensively, but like the best defense in the game is kiting. And that's why you normally take this and you get used to it. And then for the other talents, the only other consideration is Rune Tap, and that is with the Legendary Ring. But you can maneuver your way out of that, so you don't necessarily need that. So. And full bulwark is just standard. You always want this, so that's good. And then comes the most interesting choice. And I played with all these three talents, quite a lot actually. And I just find Bone Storm very clunky to use and like not that great of a DPS increase. And for me, the real choice is between Blood Mirror and Purgatory. Blood Mirror is for DPS and a small cooldown, and Purgatory is like the most defensive talent you have. And it doesn't seem like it's really good, but Once you play other tanks without a cheat death, uh, you really want a cheat death because cheat death is overpowered. It's really strong. So normally, what if I go high keys or higher content, I take purgatory, and if it's like 15, 16 mythic plus, then I take blood mirror. And then the thing about blood mirror is that you reflect 20% of the damage. So you want to really use the cooldown on the moment where enemies do a lot of damage to you. And this is mostly useful for bosses. So is there a ability that hits really hard, or like even if you can take extra damage, maybe you want to stand in things just to do more damage with it. And that's the basic use of it. And that's where you get decent damage from it. Um, that's for the talents part. As for gearing, I found out that you want to have around over 30% haste for sure, because it really starts to feel clunky if you don't. I think over 35% haste is ideal, and 40% is pretty much you almost don't feel the cooldown on your abilities. It's pretty nice, but it's not really worth it going that high because you need other stats as well. And then for crit, I also found out that having under 20% crit really feels bad for your DPS at least, and having around 25% crit is like ideal for a good balance in stats. To be honest, I was at some moment at time I was at 35% crit, and I was way too much crit, and it actually didn't really increase my damage that much because my haste was getting way too low. So it's always good to have around 25% crit, to be honest. And then the other stat that's really good is verse, although it's really hard to notice it because of the proc you get, the what's called concordance. It's really hard to really notice the difference in versatility in your damage, but it's 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 better than mastery for sure, because mastery is pretty much a shit stat. Um, you don't want to get mastery on your gear if possible, but item level is always better because high strength is really good for DPS, and that's one of the reasons. And then actually, a lot of people are talking about leech. That is really good, but what I found out is that DK have 25% leech baseline on hard strike, and another 25% from having blood shield active, which I recommend having an item tracking it, that you have it active, because the best way to make use of it is to actually pump a lot of damage within that window where the boss is about to hit you before it breaks. So you see you have the blood shield here, and now you have 25% each. And actually what you want to do is try to get as many abilities in that window, especially that strike, because they do 25% extra damage thanks to the passive here. Increases the damage by 25% of that strike. So leech isn't actually that great of a stat, to be honest. It's nice, but I wouldn't rate it the best secondary. To be honest, the best secondary for me would be avoidance. Avoidance is amazing. Um, there are so many abilities in the game that are AoE and that hit really hard. Just to give you an example, the shared suffering from Lower Kara. Well, it's an AoE ability, so if you have 30% avoidance, you take 30% less damage, which is huge. That's almost like a rune tap, right? It's really good. And I'm pretty much aiming to get this more avoidance than I have right now. Um, as for the like movement speed, that's pretty useless, and socket is alright. It's not the best, to be honest. And that's why I'm also using the two set rings here. It gives you a bunch of avoidance. Ideally, right now I have really good relics, 960 relics, but ideally I want a secondary trait of extra avoidance, because that's a lot of value. Like you can see, 1000 avoidance is like 9% reduced damage taken. It's pretty huge. It's one of those stats that you don't think about, but actually it's really powerful. So yeah, I want more of that. As for traits, um, to be honest, uh, they're they're all pretty meh. Like they're nice, but I mean the best ones is of course 2 seconds extra duration, um, and then followed by that, it's gonna be Carrion Feast. That's just extra healing, but it doesn't give you any DPS, but it's really strong defensively, right? And then afterwards, probably like Vampiric Fangs, even though it sounds very strong. The reality is that while you're under Vampiric Blood, you're pretty much unkillable, and making it stronger doesn't really help that much, to be honest. So, like the other traits are pretty meh, and I think eye level is overall better, and the secondaries, like the secondary, how you call it, Netherlight Crucible trait that gives you mastery and avoidance is probably gonna be stronger than most secondary traits. But I'll see when I get better relics. However, on to the next point I want to talk about is the legendaries. Um, I've pretty much have all the legendaries except the cloak, the neck, and yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I got all the other ones. And to be honest, for a single target, the best is always going to be the shoulders. It's extra damage and extra healing. It's really good, defensively at least. And then I was testing a lot with the chest, but after some testing, I found out that that strike is really fucking overpowered defensive-wise, and it has also good offense. To be honest, the shackles are probably the best option for a single target only, because you can really play well with having extra death strikes, because this basically means every 2 death strikes you get one free hard strike, which is 15 runic power, because it's like -7 rune power for every death strike. It gets really powerful, to be honest. The moment I got this, I really felt the difference. And then you have all the other legendaries, and they're all kind of meh. Obviously, you want Agromars and Cephas for speed. Those are the two. I recommend the shoulders and the braces for a single target. It's maybe not the best DPS, but it's certainly the best survival, I can tell you. Um, and then for AoE, this is mostly for Mythic Plus AoE. I use the chest and the ring, Cephas, and it's very nice for survival as well, because it basically makes your umbilicus really big, and that extra haste really helps with having more death strikes and more survival. And it's probably going to give you more survival having the sprock on all the time. Plus, look at this haste; it's almost 40%. It's pretty juicy. I like it. And then the other part is the trinkets. The best, probably the best in slot trinkets you're gonna have, at least for 5 mans, are going to be Agromars Conviction. This procs quite often, and it's basically around 10% damage increase and 5% damage reduction, and also 10% healing. And it's a lot of strength, which is also really good for your damage. And the other one is gonna be the Rift World Codex, which I still don't have. But seeing other people play with it and test it, this thing is like a beast. At least for 5-mans. For raiding might be different, but for 5-mans, this is probably this trinket, and Agromars is just gonna be used for all situations, for AoE and single target. It's pretty strong, and once this gets to 1000 item level, it's gonna be pretty juicy. Obviously, if you get the legendary trinket, it might be better, but good luck with that one. I mean the legendary trinket from Argus, of course, which is also really strong. But this one, the Amanthal Vision, it's really strong, but it's mainly strong because it gives a lot of avoidance and leech when it procs, and that's really strong. And Arcano stats is okay. It's not so exciting because strength is really strong for blood, because you have the rune weapon enchant, Rune of the Fallen Crusader. So you basically have 50% extra strength compared to most other tank classes or specs, because this shit procs a lot and very often. Yeah, that was for the trinkets. Right now I'm using this shitter, which I got from chest for single target. It's just stat stick basically. And for AoE, right now I'm using also the Terrorbound Nexus, which does okay damage. For my taste, it doesn't proc often enough, and it doesn't really provide defensive value, so it's not the best. But yeah, I think that was it for this guide. For tanking in 5 minutes and others, then you probably already know a lot about that. But I recommend having a clear visible health bar in the middle of the screen, or somewhere in the middle at least, and keeping track of some of your cooldowns, just to know when you're ready to have a quick pull. And yeah, have fun with the blood DK, and let me know if you want to know more. This are I make this good hours myself. Okay. Just saying. And that was it.